I like to think of myself as an accidental entrepreneur. First is you have to be able to bring all these skills together. So most people, who went to engineering, aspire to go to the US. But broadly, I would say, there are a few things which I think are going to be important. Service company, you build what the customer asks you to build. So product management is essentially, a vital function in most companies. There's a lot of learning, a lot of experience. Even wrote a book at that time. In the services thing, the customer defines the problem which you have to solve. And beta is a more advanced and evolved form of testing. Don't take anything for granted. Think, read, meet, talk, network, etc. Right, to figure out.
Namaste. This is Srilata Shankar. In our series of leadership talks in collaboration with ITTV, we have with us Mahankali Srinivas Rao, better known as MSR. He is the CEO of T-Hub, a serial entrepreneur, an alumni of IIM Bangalore and Engineering College, Usman University. Namaste, Srinivas. Welcome to our show, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Good afternoon, Srilata Garu. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me on the show.
So we can start with your engineering college. What made you take engineering vis-a-vis law or medicine?
Sure, Andy. So when I went to engineering college a long time ago, right? So a little bit of family kind of thing. So my father was an engineer. He worked in the railways. He was part of the Indian Railway Service of Engineers. And I grew up. I had three other siblings, including a twin brother. So we decided we were the eldest. Me and my twin were the eldest. So he decided to pursue medicine, and so we said, we need to, that was one choice.
One child takes engineering.
Engineering, right? So this was a long time ago. Yeah, and then of course, I felt in those days, I'm talking of early 80s, the options were either you did engineering or medicine, or in some cases, of course, some people went on to do other things, but engineering was probably the most preferred port of call when you wanted to study.
And in the south, it was chartered accountancy.
Correct.
So after your engineering, what was the course that you took, or what was the path that you took?
So at very early on in engineering, so at that time, so most people, who went to engineering aspired to go to the US. Now, when I did my engineering, I did well academically, but I realized fairly early that, it was not something which I think I would be very, very good at, right? I mean, there are two things, right? One is you can do well at something, but you also recognize that maybe it's not something you're going to be really good at, right? So then I decided fairly early on that, I think management is what I would be interested in. So I then wrote we have this exam called CAT, the Common Admission Test. I did that exam and happened to get into, I got, interview calls from, at that time there were only 4 IIMs, Bangalore, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta and Lucknow. And I managed to get calls from 4, and I got selected in 3, which is Bangalore, Calcutta and Lucknow, and I decided to join Bangalore.
I resonate with you because I did my course in NIT, National Institute of Information Technology, and realized that was not my cup of tea and moved into HR. So I completely resonate with you. After your course in Bangalore, after your course in IIM, what was your journey in terms of your career?
Sure. So my career has been in 3 parts. I've had first 12 years of my career I worked for others as a professional. Then part 2 was about entrepreneurship, which I did for about 20 years. So first 12 years, which was 1987 to 1999, I worked for 3 companies. So the first company I worked for was a software company called Sonata Software, very small company at that time, but of course now it's a mid-sized IT services company. And then I worked for a company called Computer Vision Labs. And then I worked for a company called Microland. So these 3 companies over the first 12 years. Then second part of my career is when the entrepreneurship bit began. So the first entity I was part of the promoter team at a company called Network Solutions, which finally got acquired by IBM. And then I started a cybersecurity company back in 2008, which finally got acquired by the National Stock Exchange in 2019. And then post 2019 is when I moved to the social sector, if you will, in a way, because I first was the first CEO at an entity called GAME, Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, based in Bangalore. Did that for about 15 months, and then moved to Hyderabad. Some sort of way, kind of homecoming, coming back to Hyderabad back in 2020,
Right.
2021.
That was
Just
peak COVID time.
Yeah, October 21 is when I moved. So it's been a little over 2 years now. I've been here.
If I can ask you, what was your roles in the three companies that you worked with, Sonata, Computer Vision Labs, and Microland?
Sure. So in Sonata, I started off as a management trainee, and then we were at that time, which was back in the mid 80s. We were actually going to be one of the first Indian product companies in software. So we launched a couple of products, PC-based software products. So I was product manager for a couple of them, and then I did that for about 2.5 years. Then I moved to Hyderabad from Bangalore. Then I was the again product manager at Computer Vision. We had built a couple of multi-user desktop publishing and CAD CAM solutions. Did that for about 2.5 years. Then joined Microland as the area manager. They had opened a branch in Hyderabad, and I was the first manager there. And then after that, moved to Bangalore. Did a range of things in Microland for about 5 years, and then started my stint as an entrepreneur.
Okay. For a young student who's an engineering student or a management student, or a young professional who's just entered his career after his college, what is product management? Question 2 is, how does one get into product management?
So product management is essentially a vital function in most companies. Basically, the intent is he's the glue which brings the development team, the marketing, the sales engine, all of that together. So there's a technology. Somebody from technology would define we want to build a product or a platform, and then being able to sit down and write the detailed specifications of what we are going to build, what capabilities, features, benefits, etc., is something which the product team typically would do, working closely in conjunction with the tech team. So that's one part. Right? The second part is as you build the product, making sure that the test cycles are done adequately, working with the testing team. And
the test cycles are done by the software people?
By the software team, but this team makes sure
Sure.
the test cases are written properly, and whatever.
Sure.
And then kind of helping them with getting it in front of alpha testing, beta testing, working with potential clients, influencers, and so on. That's where the product management team works closely with the rest of the organization to make that happen. And then when you're launching it, right, the marketing bit, the outreach, and all of that, and then defining what we need to do based on user feedback. How do we enhance what we are building? How do we add new functionality, new whatever? And then, of course, since those were fairly small companies, also managing external partnerships and all of that, right, with other people who are building things which would complement what you are building. That's where so it was a lot of learning, a lot of experience. Even wrote a book at that time. So yeah, it was great fun.
Can you elaborate what is alpha testing and beta testing?
Sure. So when product is still not, is still kind of not, you have you built a product, it's beyond a prototype, but you haven't yet actually, you're not ready to go to the market. That's when you do the alpha, and beta is a more advanced and evolved form of testing. where you have it's a little more closer to what you're likely to launch type of thing, and that's what we
Sure. So one question that I have is, when a management student, the local management student colleges that come out every year, I'm not talking of the IMs and XLRs, but the local colleges, they don't have specific product management course. They have HR, finance, marketing, and maybe market research. Ancillary courses are digital marketing, etc. So, how does one choose to get into product management, or how does one need? What does one need to learn to get into product management?
Yeah, so I think first is you have to be able to bring all these skills together, right? So you have to have a reasonable understanding of technology, right? You have to have a reasonable understanding of how sales works, how marketing works, right? How does how do you are playing that role of an interface between all these teams, right? So being able to manage that part, right? So some of it is something which you can go through a course, which there are now in some places, but a lot of it is on the job. You learn as you go along, right? And obviously, once you do it the first time, then you'll understand a little better. You iterate, you learn, and so on.
What if I get into a service company and not a product company? Like I don't get into Microsoft, which is a product company, and get into ABC company, which is not into product. So how can I then get in? How can a student get into product company or product management?
So it really depends, right? I think if you take uh, if somebody joins a service company, now there are, depending on what you will end up doing there, right? Obviously, to make a switch to a product company, it takes some effort, because the way, you know, uh, in a service company, you build what the customer asks you to build.
Right.
Okay, the customer by and large kind of defines the requirement, and then you go out and build, right, what he wants with some variations, you know, always some exceptions to the rule. But when you're building a product, right, particularly, it's you have to think about it from ground up, right? First, why are we building what we are building, right? Nobody's asked us to build this. We have decided to build it because we have some idea about, we think this idea has potential. You can build something with scale, and so on and whatever, right? So first, what is the in the services thing, the customer defines the problem which you have to solve.
Right.
In the services thing, in the product space, you have to define
What the customer
expects, or what is the problem you have seen. The customer is, there's nobody who's prodding you saying this is the problem, solve it for me. So you have to be able to visualize, okay, listen, I'm looking around the environment, and I think this is a problem which is acute, it is waiting to be solved, and can I solve it, right? And then obviously figure out the solution, and come find out who else is doing what you're doing, or what can you do, which is like, what are the capabilities of what I'm trying to build, in the feature, the benefit. So it's obviously a lot more work, challenging, because you have to visualize.
Sure.
Right? Nobody's telling you this is what we want. I mean, of course, there will be people who, you'll have mentors and all of that stuff, but a lot of the original thinking, right, will come from you. You meaning the entity which you kind of.
Sure. How does a student differentiate between a product and services, and how does he lead his career into product management?
Yeah, so I think the first thing which I think all young people, so one is obviously, do your academics and all of that part. But I think two, three things which I think I tell everybody they should be, which are going to become more and more important. It's almost like, first of all, can you, when you want to build a product, you have to be able to kind of do a lot of dissection, and break down a large problem into small problems you can solve, and so on. So the ability to think critically, I think, is an important skill in the product management space. I'm not saying it's not important in something else, but it is important, right? The ability to think critically, the ability to think a little bit differently, or you might call it a little out of the box, or a little creatively, is important, right? So these two. The third is you
would also say problem solving.
Problem solving is important. Problem solving, reasoning, being able to convince others to come around to your point of view, which is where communication, etc., comes in. How can you collaborate, right? Because you have to now convince a whole lot of other people that whatever you're trying to, this thing. So I think these are skills which are important, right? And there are a few things which I think people can do, which can help them do some of these things. This critical thinking, creative thinking, collaboration, and communication, and so on. Is around. I think you need to read.
Read a lot,
You need to
unlike
read.
which the younger generation do not do. They're all into,
Well, I don't want.
Xbox,
I wouldn't.
etc.
I think we shouldn't make like a generalization.
Statement.
There are people who read,
Yes.
but I think it's fair to say that a large number of them, the reading, thanks to social media,
Social media, absolutely.
television, etc., has come down significantly.
Absolutely. There's a rather stick with the Xbox than a book in the hand. What is the career path you would advise for the students, engineering and management students, and three important things they should do or they should not do?
So it's very hard to give a one size fits all for any of this, right?
Sure.
Because each person is different. What motivates that person is different. But broadly, I would say there are a few things which I think are going to be important. First is I think today, particularly anyone who's getting into the tech space, technology is changing very
Rapidly.
fast, right? It's changing every few months, type of thing, right? So the one thing is you must learn to be adaptable.
Sure.
Okay, don't take anything for granted, right? What you know today
It's obsolete.
may become obsolete fairly quickly, right? So I think prepare yourself for a lifelong journey of learning, unlearning, and
Relearning.
relearn. Right. So that's the one thing I
Right.
tell. Right. The second is uh, how do what do you do, and also the competitive level of competition in anything become probably much higher, right? Because there are lots of bright people now around you. So what is it that you're doing which will help you differentiate?
Sure.
What is the either the skill or the knowledge or sometimes even attitude which you have which will help you differentiate, right? So I think so. Learn, unlearn. Second is keep thinking about uh, you know uh, are you doing the best that you can? Are you being the best version of you every single day? Whatever type of thing. Third is get out of your comfort zones. Okay, you should
Absolutely.
nothing uh, nothing disruptive or new will come if you are living in a comfort zone,
Cocoon.
right, or a cocoon. Unless you challenge yourself, first of all you will not know what you're capable of until you are challenged,
Very
right?
true.
Many of us sometimes think this is all that we can do, but maybe when we're pushed we can do a lot more. So get that whole thing internally, and figure out how to.
Like I always say, you raise the bar for yourself.
Absolutely. See, ultimately, you have to be driven,
True.
right? There is some external drive and external whatever impetus or whatever, but it's a lot of it is you have to motivate yourself, and you have to say, I want to make a difference, I want to create an impact, and so on. So you have to push yourself.
The lots of students, like you rightly said, are very bright and very, very up there kind of a person, but they're also very confused. So how will you guide them
In terms of what they should be doing.
in terms of their career, in terms of what they want to do in life?
Yeah. So see, it's not the easy answer, right? Because one is
They're very bright, but they're still
yeah,
confused.
but I think a few things, right? First is be true to yourself. Okay, don't do things because others are doing it.
True.
Okay, or because there's some pressure on you to do it. So ask yourself, what I want to do, right? And then you can figure out a journey,
Sure.
right? And think, read, meet, talk, network, etc., right, to figure out, right? And then in terms of whether you want to, what's your natural aptitude for, right? You'll figure out,
Right.
right? And also, I think in those days, when I was growing up, counseling was typically associated with the fact that you may have had a health issue or something, but no longer the case. So there are enough people now around who are
Wanting
there
to
to
counsel
support
you.
you,
Yeah.
who want to support you, guide you,
True.
advise you, and so on.
True. Your journey as an entrepreneur, can you walk us through that?
I like to think of myself as an accidental entrepreneur, right? A lot of things, like in hindsight, you can rationalize and say you did this, but a lot of things happened, just out of whatever. So the first one was, the first stint. There was a very dear friend of mine, Sudhir Sharma. He started a company called Network Solutions, and then he was looking to raise some funding back almost 25 years ago, when the VC ecosystem was not as developed as it is today. So Intel was keen on investing, and then they said, they told Sudhir that he should strengthen and broad base his core management team. And then I knew Sudhir for about 5 years at that time, so we discussed, and we got along very well. I still have the highest respect for Sudhir. So he said, why don't you come and we'll build this together. So that's when I joined, and we had a good ride. We did a lot of very interesting things. We happened to raise some money. We also had some acquisition engagement. We built a large customer base. Built almost 1,000 people company
Wonderful.
in about 6 or 7 years, and then IBM came and wanted to acquire. We went through a fairly long process, but it happened finally. Yeah, so that was so great journey in terms of how do you build something from scratch, and how a small but very committed team which we had can really build a 1,000 people plus company, right?
That's a large company. 1,000 plus is a large
It
company.
was, I think the one thing throughout the journey was, I think uh, we were, passionate about what we did, but we also had a lot of fun. Right?
Sure.
I think the one thing I keep telling myself is, when are you most productive? Right? When you are not stressed, right? And if you think about work as a job, as opposed to saying, okay, I'm doing this because I like to do it, right? When you say I like to do it, I think
Passion kicks
the
in.
energy, you know, everything kicks in, and so obviously the output is likely to be better, right? So I think I can say that with all humility, that you know, my the entire journey as an entrepreneur, I think that's one philosophy, that don't, first of all, don't take yourself too seriously. Okay, sometimes things happen which you have no control on, or even if you have control on, things go wrong. Fair enough, but don't beat yourself too much if something goes wrong. Don't beat others up also too much if things go wrong. And second is, when something happens good, yeah, pat yourself for a little while. Pat them, your other who is involved. But then you remember that you have to again get up the next day and kind of
Redo the whole thing again.
build again, start again from where, right? So it's a journey. So you have to be. It's like sometimes it does feel like you're running on a treadmill, which cannot stop. But you have to figure out, you know, you have to figure out when to slow down a bit, and whatever. But it's fun. I mean,
Your switch from a professional career, management career, to an entrepreneur. How was it difficult? Because at one stage you were, getting a salary month on month.
I was very lucky, I think, in the sense that all the three companies I worked with in the early stages were all, the term startup didn't exist then,
Right.
back in
Sure.
the late 80s and early 90s. So we didn't know that word till much later.
Right.
But one thing is that, first of all, I think I had very lucky that I had great set of people to work with, including the people whom I used to report to, my bosses or superiors, all wonderful people. Every one of them.
Sure.
Right. I think I could probably say without any fear of contradiction that I was very, very blessed to have my first boss was a gentleman called Biram Swami. Sadly passed away, I think, a little about a year ago. Wonderful man. He was from I am Ahmedabad, professional, very thorough gentleman, etc. Then Dr. Rajarao also, who was academically very gifted. Then someone like Pradeep Kar, very charismatic personality and very driven personality. And then of course, as an entrepreneur stint, I worked with Sudhir, who's one of the most uh, you know amazing people you can meet. Nothing phases him. Very humble, but yet very wears his uh, wears his achievements very light and all that, right? So a lot of things in terms of obviously, of course, parents and family and brother and sisters and all helped. But I think working with these guys closely, the
Sure.
founders, gives you that first-hand experience. So you recognize that couple of things, that they are obviously smart, but then you also start thinking, okay, if he can do it, why can't I do it? The whole thing about inspiration and role modeling. So I think I was lucky to have that exposure, right? And yeah.
But the first 6 months or first 1 year of your entrepreneur journeys to kickstart with, wasn't it pinching? Because on the one hand, you were getting a salary month on month at your jobs. As an entrepreneur, you may not have had the luxury of doing that, of getting that. Sorry.
Well, not really, because the company had started
Sure.
by the time I joined. So it wasn't like we're starting from zero. And basically, they were doing okay. And I came in at a stage where I was able to, build on the foundation. So foundation to some extent was laid. I was able to build on it,
Sure.
right? So, and of course, the second one which I did, that we started from zero, and there I think again we were able to, before we even built anything, right, or did something, we were able to get funding, right?
Right.
So didn't have the obviously we made sure that we didn't the money was managed conservatively, etc. So we made sure we paid ourselves a decent compensation. We would obviously, if you had worked in a corporate, we would have probably made much more monthly. But then the satisfaction of saying you're
Satisfaction,
building
right.
something from scratch with your own hands, and obviously there's an equity component downstream. If we build something valuable, there's a monetization opportunity. So
What is the advice that you will give young professionals, again, management, engineering, and young professionals to start their own career? A lot of youngsters today want to be entrepreneurs. So, what will your advice be to them, and what is the career path they should give?
So I think so. Two, three things, right? One is there's a lot of things depending on for example, entrepreneurs are generally there are two or three things which characterize most good entrepreneurs. One is that they're intrinsically problem solvers at heart. An entrepreneur identifies a problem or a gap in the market and says, okay, I can fix this. One. Second is, you also realize entrepreneurship, very rarely will you be successful if you try to do everything by yourself, right? You have to
Delegate.
learn to be a team player, right? You have to learn to be able to get different people together, work with them, right? Not everybody will think the same way, right? But at least as long as you can define a larger common purpose and get people aligned there, that one part, right? So be passionate about what you do. Ask yourself, I mean, I ask myself even now after almost 37 years of working, what have I done today which is going to make a difference, type of thing. One.
Okay.
and is there sometimes things don't go well, right? So what have you learned there? If things go well, what have you learned? What made this actually go well, sort of thing, right? And then think, and I put it this way, right? I think uh, whatever you do, right, whether you work in a job or you start something on your own, most important thing to me is about having the right attitude, okay, which is saying, okay, let's go out and do this. I think that's the challenge, and then stay strong. You stay strong. You'll have
Hiccups.
hiccups. You'll have crests and troughs, type of thing. But just stay strong, stay focused, and have a set of whether it's friends and family, or immediate family or somebody else. Entrepreneurship can be lonely. It can be tough many times. So have someone whom you can talk to, right, and get support whenever things are not looking great, type of thing. And then just keep focused on making sure you deliver value, whether it's to your customers or to your employees or to your other stakeholders. I mean, keep it simple.
Yeah, like
And be always asking yourself, is this the best that I can be? Right, one. And second is, how do I get others to see, the future, through the same glasses that I am wearing.
I always say this to my young students that if you want to be an entrepreneur, have a detailed write up about it, like every step that you want to take, and discuss it with your seniors and your not your peers but your seniors,
Seniors.
etc. So I'm sure you agree with that. What if a student starts off his career in a corporate company and then wants to switch over to an entrepreneur like you? What is the steps that he should take that you would advise?
So I'll put it this way, right? One is, even when you're in a corporate career, I think it's important that you are always learning, right? You have to have that open mindset. So what is it like every single day? Okay, have I learned something different? Have I learned something new? Okay, or in any area, right? So as long as you have that, right, and you'll need that today, even in the corporate world. Uh, you know, if you don't upgrade, you don't reskill yourself. Many cases, you could become fairly obsolete fairly
Sure.
soon, right? And you'll have to watch other people
Grow.
go past you. So I think these two things, right, which is you have to have a great attitude, you have to build, skills, and you have to acquire knowledge. These are kind of common to both, right? There's obviously some risk, much more risk in a entrepreneurial role as a vis-a-vis a startup. But I also tell people that sometimes even when you fail, right? My belief is you tend to learn more from your failures than when you're successful, because you know you if you sit down and analyze, you'll understand where did we go wrong in something, in whatever you are doing, and that power of being able to think analytically with some level of detachment, I think is a very powerful tool or capability.
Sure. A student wants to be an entrepreneur, engineering or management student, but he does not know what aspect of entrepreneurship he wants to take. So, what would you advise him?
Sure. So I tell, so today, the word entrepreneurship is fashionable, whatever, all of that, right? Having said that, I think I tell people that entrepreneurship. First of all, be prepared to recognize that entrepreneurship is a long, hard slog. It doesn't
True.
happen overnight.
True.
People
True.
who are successful today are people who worked their
For
backs
20
off for
plus
many
years.
years
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get to whatever. So be prepared for hard work, right? And be prepared to have a you have to manage and satisfy many stakeholders, your customers, your investors, right, your own team, right, and so on, right. So it is not entrepreneurship. Sometimes I think is people think if you're an entrepreneur you can do anything you want. Very rarely, right.
You would say it's overrated word?
That is overrated. I want to be my own boss. Broadly overrated.
Right.
sort of thing, right? So I think it's important to learn, observe, watch, you know, look around who are the successful entrepreneurs either in your family, okay, or someone you know, right? Spend some time to learn, what they're going through,
Right.
and think and reflect.
Now, if I have somebody in my family, parent or aunt, uncle, it's a little easier. But what if I want to be the first generation
I
entrepreneur?
was a first generation entrepreneur, and no one in my family had even the remotest idea of getting into a business. So one thing I tell people is that sometimes it is helpful to go and work for a little while
Right.
in a
I,
company,
I completely agree with
two
you.
3 years, so that you understand
The
many
business
aspects of
functioning.
not necessarily only technology but also organizational dynamics, how to work with teams,
Teams, yes.
how to be able to communicate well. A lot of those things you'll acquire if you go out and work for a company.
True.
And then after 3 years, you also have some safety cushion by way of some savings,
Savings.
etc. So then, even if you start something, it doesn't work out well for whatever reason, you're not completely, destitute, sort of thing.
Yes, I agree with you because once you join the company, you understand the organization dynamics, team dynamics, how organizations function, etc., or team different departments function. Oh, what would you say for a young student again that there are three things that he should do to build his career and the everybody youngsters especially within 5 years they want to be the CFO, CEOs, CUTOs. I said it's not possible. So what is the advice that you would give them?
So first is be curious. Entrepreneurship, a lot of it is about being curious, okay, about doing things which you didn't know much about and figuring out as you go. So be curious, be passionate,
Yeah.
okay. Uh,
Entrepreneur or as a working professional, they expect to become a CEO, CTO, at least a vice president in 5-7 years. I said it's not possible.
yeah, so I'm saying, so I put it this way. I think, whether you're a professional or an entrepreneur, I think these things will help you, being curious, being about passionate, having a, uh,
Fire
stakeholder
in your
first,
belly.
fake, fire in the belly, having a, not a win at all costs, but how do I make sure that whatever I do, I'm constantly striving to get better, right, and become better. But I've become better today than I was yesterday, and so on, right? So this, what you might call, it almost reminds me of this poem from by Tagore, the ceaseless striving for perfection, right? So that's what you have to do, right? You'll find very few entrepreneurs who will tell you after they've built even large companies that they will not say that they are perfect. Right? Have the humility to recognize that in everything you do there is room to get better and do more.
For the entrepreneur, for a person who wants to be an entrepreneur, what does he have to take into consideration in terms of the venture capitalist?
The VC thing usually starts a little late. So what you need to do first is, today's time, particularly in the last year or so, when funding has slowed down, unless you have really an exceptional idea, hit a ball, hit it out of the ballpark idea, people would want to see some level of, what is the team, what is the quality of the idea, what is the current level of monetization you've been able to do, which is basically traction, etc., and what's your roadmap, sort of thing. So I think, VC and all comes later, right? And there are, of course, entities which give you grants and, of course, friends and family and all to support you. But usually that comes a little later, at least in India, unlike maybe other markets.
So you're saying the first step is the concrete, detailed plan,
Idea.
right? So I want to be an entrepreneur, and how do I get into? T-Hub does a lot of innovation or incubation for the young entrepreneur. For a student who's absolutely clueless of getting into T-Hub Innovation Center or Incubation Center, how does he or she get into T-Hub Incubation Center?
Sure. So first of all, what we are doing is we are now running programs with a lot of colleges. We're already working with about 7+ colleges today. So we work with the colleges to help them set up incubator and figure out best practices, etc. etc. How do you kindle this whole entrepreneurial spirit and so on is one of the focus areas of that program. So that's one thing we are doing. Second is we also run a lot of what we call idea open houses, where people come in and just talk about what they are trying to build, why they are trying to build it, etc.
Even
And
at the
if
start stage.
at idea stage,
Sure.
right? So we then ask them to come spend some time. We try and understand what they're trying to do a little more detail, dissect the model, etc. And then tell them, listen, this is what you should be doing. Or sometimes we tell them, don't do this because I think this is a very crowded space. There's nothing you are going to build which is
Different.
going to be different compared to what
So, how often is the incubation exercise conducted?
we do. This once a month. Every month we do. We call it open house, idea open house. People can come and talk about what they are doing. We spend some time, try to understand what they are doing, etc. And if we think there is some merit in what they're thinking about, we'll spend more time and see how we can get them more.
Is there any date specified?
Usually it's on the first Thursday.
Thursday. All right. Apart from entrepreneurship, any other advices that you would give a student? Maybe not an entrepreneur who wants to build his own career as a corporate professional.
In today, I keep saying, and maybe this comes across being a little repetitive. I think today's world, whether you're an entrepreneur or work for a company, you better be good at what you're trying to do. Okay, so which means you have to keep upgrading yourself. You have to learn new things, right? You have to learn how to team up, how to collaborate. You have to get better at things like public speaking and so on, right? Get exposure to different you know, ways of doing work, different work cultures and so on. So I think it's fundamentally, I think it's about keeping your mind sharp and keeping focused on what you're trying to build or what you're trying to, wherever you're working, and trying to be the best that you can be.
As an entrepreneur, I've started my career as an entrepreneur, but I failed, and that's affecting my mental health. Today, a lot of youngsters are facing mental health. So, what do you advise for them? A, in the context of his entrepreneurship failing, and second is mental health.
Sure. So I think the last 2 3 years have been really tough, thanks to the pandemic and all of that. But I put it this way, right? I think uh, things do happen which you don't visualize or don't envision, sort of thing. But when it happens, I always say that you cannot drive a car by looking in the rear view mirror, right? Most times, right? You have to look forward. So sometimes things happen which you don't account for. You didn't think it would happen. You have to move on, right? And just unnecessarily brooding over it is not going to be good for you and for the people who are around you, whether it's colleagues or
Family.
family and all. So I think it's just important for us to to move on. The nature of the startup game is that there is probably higher chances of many startups not actually
Taking off.
surviving or taking off, but it's great experience because you learn so much. You do wear so many hats during the course of a day or a month or a year. But the learning is tremendous, and many cases sometimes the failure itself is a badge of honor, because think about it, right? You tried something, it didn't work, but
But at least you
you
tried,
tried.
right? Youngsters today are falling prey to depression. What do you tell them?
Listen,
Lots of youngsters.
I know, but I think
Unlike our generation, you and me would just brush it off and go on.
I
But
think
today, everything and
two parts, right?
anything
I think there's a
help.
lot of some of it, some of it is something which you can cultivate interests other than work, for example. Have something else, to keep you
Fall back
occupied,
on.
right? To keep you occupied, which could be anything. You play a sport, or you volunteer, or you become part of a community,
Or
or you
learn
read,
dance,
or
music,
whatever, something else, right?
sketching, whatever.
Which keeps you away from the what you're doing. I think that's, you need a stress buster sort of thing, right? Which could be anything. right? So I think you have to focus on that, and then and follow a simple philosophy, which is this too shall pass.
I also tell them that build a lot of skills. You don't know where it's going to lead you to.
Lead you to, yeah.
And not everything needs to be monetized.
Monetize.
The central government and the state government is doing a lot for the innovation and innovativeness. What would you suggest are the 3 points that, or 1 or 2 points that you would tell the central and the state government they should do?
So I think they're doing a lot. Right? I think there are now 80 plus schemes from the center, to support these entrepreneurs. Telangana, is a great story. How a very forward-looking leadership has built a really high-quality innovation ecosystem with so many different 9 entities and so on. So I don't think there's a lot I can say in terms of what they can do. Obviously, there are things around, can we make it, around ease of doing business, etc., easier. Those are ongoing, right? We've come a long way, but there, it's never going to be. I don't think you'll ever say that, that we are perfect in that space.
It's never come to a saturation point.
Saturation point. It will take time.
So, my next question is as a professional, as a IT professional or IT company, or as an entrepreneur, what are the pain areas for you or the IT company and which the government can ease or help?
So I'll put it this way, right? I think when you start something on your own, I think ultimately the government can help. Right? Government can make it setting up a business easier, setting down a business easier, can give you fiscal incentives and bunch of other things. But having said that, I think today you have to also admire all the entrepreneurs who've been successful in the past. When today the level of support which an entrepreneur gets, the government is at a different level compared to what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? But those, you have to admire those people, because even with that minimal support, they're able to build large entities, right? So I think don't move away from I call it aid seeker mentality, to focusing on saying, listen, what can I do to make a difference?
Not just in the context of aid, but what are pain areas which the government can help ease?
So the government, lots of things, right? I think logistics, connectivity, right? Making sure that the education curriculum is more reflective of what, as an employer, you would want.
Very true.
A lot of things are happening. Some of them will take happen quickly. Some of them will take time. But
yeah, our course curriculum has to change because it's kind of obsolete now.
Yeah.
You also have other interests as cricket, quiz, and reading. So, please walk us through that.
Yeah, so I think I grew up in a pre-television area. So obviously, reading was something, and it's a great
also our parents inculcated us from a very young age to read.
Yeah, so I enjoy it. I try and do at least 15-20 pages every day if I can. So it is good because it's almost like the author is talking to you type of thing. Enjoy it. Cricket.
What genres of book do you read?
I don't read a lot of fiction these days. I tend to read more. I like history. I read history. Then I read books around business mostly around business. I don't read much fiction now. I used to do that when I was younger.
Yeah, fiction is kind of, we've grown up on that.
Yeah.
And probably politics. Geopolitics rather. Yeah. And your interest as quiz master?
That was a long time ago. It was something which I made a lot of friends with because of that, because of my interest. It was fun because you learn something in a quiz. You get to deploy that knowledge. A lot of it is a collection of useless facts. But so what?
Do you still quiz? Are you still a quiz master now?
No, not.
And you're a cricket fanatic, as you rightly put it.
Yeah.
So the World Cup, you're glued to the TV now?
No, I don't get time to watch much, but I watch the highlights. I catch up with the game, in the highlights. because by the time I get done, usually it's about 8:39. So
Apart from these, what are your other interests, or what do you envisage for your future?
I think I enjoy what I'm doing at the hub, and I think the ability to impact and shape the lives of many entrepreneurs is a blessing. So I try and do what I can. I ask myself at the end of every day, what is it have I done today to help somebody else move forward?
What is your future plans?
Well, I'll keep doing what I'm doing. I enjoy doing it, and I think
In post-retirement, whenever that may be.
I mean, I have never thought about it, to be very honest, right? I will obviously be,
Always helping youngsters.
I'll try and do something where I can. I've been very, blessed and lucky and fortunate, and if there's any way I can give back, I would like to.
So do you also do a lot of CSR activities, I heard? So can you please tell us that?
Yeah, I try and as I said, one had has had a lot of good things happening. So wherever you can help, I do contribute monetarily and otherwise time to help somebody who's doing some work.
No, not just in the context of Monterey, but are you setting up, villages and things like that?
No, I've worked with a few NGOs. I support them with my time, and then obviously whatever causes they're working on.
And what are those causes?
So mostly in healthcare and education.
It was really wonderful talking to you, and thank you for being our guest. Wish you all the best for your future.
Thank you, Srilata Garu, and thank you to the team at ITTV for this opportunity, and again appreciate the opportunity to spend the time we have.
Thank you so much. Thank you.